Maximo Fundamentals UI Navigation. So this recording will take you through some of the basics of using the Maximo Fundamentals User Interface. So I'm logged in here and I'm in a Start Center, and this Start Center is for a planner scheduler role. And with the basics of a Start Center, you can see in the center here is on the left are a list of applications that are particular to my role, applications that I most commonly use. And then on the right-hand side, this list is 4 different queries, or sometimes called portlets, and they give you views of data that are relevant to your role. In this case, since I deal with managing work orders, it's showing me my list of unapproved work that's ready to start, approved but not yet started, and then the third one is work that's in progress. Now, these Start Centers are configurable. You can work with your administrator to configure additional queries that may be more relevant to you, and also change the list of applications that you tend to use most often. Some other things on this in general, if you look at the top banner, the house is the Start Center link, if you will. So if you're anywhere in Maximo, so if I select this work order and I want to go back to my Start Center, I click that icon and I'm back to the Start Center. On the right here, this arrow signs me out of Maximo, so that'll take me out to the login page. On the left, there's actually 2 flavors of getting into the different applications. First of all, I'm in as an administrative user, so I have access to pretty much every application in Maximo Fundamentals. As a normal user, you'd have a much smaller set of applications. Depending on your role, you'd have certain applications available to you. And they're accessed here in the left where I'm scrolling my mouse, or also under this icon at the top. One other feature they both carry is this recent application. So usually in 1 or 2 applications, when you go to this selection, the most recent applications you've been into are at the top of the list. It's a very convenient way to jump between 1 or 2 or 3 applications. So let me jump into the work order tracking application as an example. And what I'm going to do is when I come in, if I put my cursor in a field, usually the first field, and I hit enter, it's going to show me all the rows that have that meet the criteria. And the default criteria in this filter list is on the right here is it defaults to the site. This is the site that you use. But you can use any field here to filter on. So if I had a number of work orders and I only wanted to see the approved work orders, I could type in APPR, and that shows me both approved and unapproved. WAPPR represents unapproved. It's a light condition where it takes anything that matches those letters. If I put in the equal sign in front of it, now it gives me an exact match. So the unapproved falls off and it's just approved. That's how you can do that filtering. I'll hit enter again. For the links or the headers of each column, if you click on them, they'll let you sort, ascending and descending, so you can see the work orders as I click that. They were changing sort order. And you can do that to any of the columns on the top. If I select a work order, you can see that there's a description. This little symbol icon to the right is the long description. So for more verbose description, you can enter it in this dialog here. These fields with the lookup spyglass gives you a selection. For fields that have what's called a domain, or maybe it's a reference to another table, they have a selection option. You use this icon to get the dialog to select a value. Many of those lists are configurable, so you can work with your administrator. We provide in this example, 4 work types out of the box. If you have other work types that you want to use in your organization, you can work with your administrator to enter in additional work types. that you can then assign to your work orders. If you look at asset and location here, they have what's called a detail menu and that double arrow icon. And you can select the value with the spyglass, similar to the work type, but you can also jump to the application. So here I'm going to the asset application. And again, if I hit enter, it shows me whatever assets. I have just a test asset in here, but I've selected this. And if you look at the top right, I can do a return, I can do a return with value. So if I wanted to assign this asset to my work order, I could say return with value. And now it brings that asset back to my work order application. And when you mouse over, when you see a field with this little I, the letter I in a circle, that has a mouse over information dialog, such it'll show you a limited set of attributes, so that if you just need to see those without actually going to the asset application, you can do that directly from this application. If you look at the top of these applications, most Maximo applications, they have a number of icons. The first one's usually the new. So if you want to create a new work order or a new asset, you'd hit this icon. The second one is save. If you started making changes and you want to clear your changes, you could click the eraser icon. And then there's a scrolling icon. So this, if you remember, if I go back to my list view, there's three work orders here. If I select the middle one, if I click to the left arrow, it takes me to the first one. If I click the right arrow, it's taking me to the second and then on to the third. A couple of other things here for fields that are date, time specific. There's a little dialog where you could pick the date as well as a time. Select that. And then if I jump to the Plans tab, one thing I wanted to show here is the concept of a table. So if you look at this table down here, again, it's multiple tabs, labor, material, service, tools. But inside this table of labor, I can basically select what's called craft codes. So let me just select a few of these just as to show the behavior here. So I select 3 crafts, I'll save them. And so these 3 are part of this work order. And one thing to point here is if I want to remove one, the trash can on the icon on the right, you click that. If there's additional detail for each one of these rows, this arrow on the left-hand side, the view details arrow, if you click that, it twists open the bottom. And what you will see down below the row is all the fields that are in the row, but depending on what table window you're looking at, you would see, sometimes many additional fields, in some cases just a few additional fields. But you can edit the fields in either place, up in the row in the table window or down below if the fields are deemed editable. A couple other things in this navigation on this left hand side. When you're in an application, there's different sections of this menu. So if you start at the top, the available query, and you can collapse these, minimize them. So this is, I've minimized, I basically maximized the top one, the go-to applications. If I bring that down, now if I go to my available queries, you can see right here, these are different queries that are available for this application. When I go to common actions, these are actions that you do frequently. Start a new work order, save a work order. So they're the duplicate. Same thing as pressing the icons up top. But you can do things like change status is a very common one you would see in many applications. There's the dialog. There's also change status by just approving the work order and taking ownership of the work order. And then there's usually a more actions, which is additional features of the application that you may choose to use depending on what you're doing, what application you're in, and how you're processing the record. So this is very common in all the applications. Again, going back to my start center. If you exit, and this is showing a warning message, if you've changed the record and then you go to exit this application by selecting another application, or in my case, I clicked the icon to go back to the start center, you'll get a warning message asking if you want to save the changes you did. And if you do, that way you don't lose the changes if you forgot to save before exiting. And as I may have said earlier, this last icon here, the arrow is the sign out. When I click this, it'll take me out of Maximo back to the login window.